Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hello to the world. So finally, we are here with the Act Global. So I'm Abdul Samad Khan, your host from Youth Impact, and right now I'm in Islamabad. It's 3 p.m. with me, and I've got two amazing guests. As always, we get a chance to listen and interact with different thought leaders. So today with me, I've got Vyara. She's from Bulgaria. Thank you, Vyara, for joining us today. And we have got Abdelrahman. He joined us right now from UK. So I'll be requesting both of my friends to give a brief introduction about themselves. But before that, let me give you an overview that why we are here today. So Act Global. So in Youth Impact World, we call it a cup of tea, ACT. So, we do have 11 different alumni chapters in different cities of Pakistan. And before COVID-19, we used to have a monthly reunion of our alumni. And in every city, they used to meet together, they used to network, and they used to learn from some mentors or some experts. So thanks to COVID, that we couldn't hold those uh, offline sessions anymore. So we got an opportunity to invite experts across the globe and to learn from them. So that's where we shifted our ACT alumni reunion towards ACT Global. And as we say, it's a cup of tea. So I've got my cup of tea ready with me. And the beauty of this kind of ACT Global is that, you're not forced to drink Pakistani spice chai. You can have your Turkish tea, you can have your coffee, you can have your soft drinks, your water bottle. So whatever you like at your convenience, at your pace, you can enjoy. So thank you very much, Vyara and Abdurrahman, and thanks to all the young people who are joining and who are going to join us in this conversation. Generally, we go with the natural flow. We get a lot of questions and comments from the audience, and I invite all of you who are watching this live streaming to put your comments at our Facebook page at Youth Impact. When you go at Youth Impact, you will find this uh, page at Youth Impact Society. So when you go to this page, there you can find this live session, and under that live, you can post your comments, your questions to our worthy panelists. Well, so moving on to our amazing guests, starting with Vyara. Vyara, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Bulgaria. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you for the invitation. And I just want to say before I start that I'm very happy to be on this live. My name is Vyara. I am 20 years old and I am from the capital of Bulgaria, Sofia. And I am 20 years old, if I didn't say that. So I wanted to talk here about youth activism because that is something that I have been passionate about for years. Throughout the course of my life, I have organized and participated in more than 60 youth initiatives in more than 15 countries on 3 continents.
Wow.
And
Oh,
because I was very passionate about different things, I wanted to try many different activities. I used to be a debater in the Bulgarian Debate Association. So that's one part of the activities I was taking part in. And then also I am a KOES alumna from my country, which means that I went to study abroad in the USA for 1 year. And that is a great opportunity for youth from all around the globe. It is also available to youngsters from Pakistan. So if you have the chance to apply for it, I strongly encourage you to do it. And I have also participated in a lot of Erasmus opportunities, which are specifically aimed at youth from the European Union, which Bulgaria is a part of the European Union, if you guys didn't know that. So I have done a lot of things with them. Most recently, I took part in the European Solidarity Corps as a volunteer, and I spent 9 months on the Canary Islands in La Palma working in the youth center, creating all kinds of activities like community garden and English lessons for kids, which was also very fun and very helpful. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here and I will be glad to answer all of your questions. So please feel free to be curious.
excellent, wonderful. Thank you very much, Vyara, for being so generous and uh, as our audience can see or listen here, that we have got this offer that you can post your comments and questions, and definitely we are going to ask you that how at such a young age you managed to travel to so many places across the world. I mean, it seems that you are a very rich person. So we'll come to this point. Okay,
Great.
so my friend Abdelrahman, we need to know more about you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Samad, for the invitation. And also, it's a pleasure to be here on this platform and getting exposed for me. I think it's a new audience, the youth in Pakistan, which I'm sure, they're doing amazing stuff on the ground. But I think here we can discuss a little bit from our experiences. And also, it's nice to be with Vyara and also listening kind of to her story briefly. But I'm also excited to learn more about her story. So yeah, my name is Abdelrahman. I am based in the UK. I've lived across the UK. I lived in Scotland for some time, but currently I'm based in London. I've been in let's say, the civil society activism for now maybe 10 years or over 10 years, on a local level in Scotland and then on a national level in the UK. But recently I've been active on a European level. So I'm active with two organizations on a European level. One of them is called FEMISO, which is the Forum of European Muslim Youth and Student Organizations. It's a network of 33 national organizations across 20
Oh,
countries in Europe.
oh,
So we work on supporting those organizations, but also representing the voice of Muslim students and Muslim youth across the across Europe, and working closely with a lot of the key institutions such as the Commission, the Parliament, Council of Europe, and so on and so forth. But I'm also active with Al Sharq Youth, which
yeah.
maybe some of you have heard of. Maybe we can speak about it a little bit more, which is a global network of also empowering youth across the world. And they have a region in Europe that has been recently set up, and I'm helping them to kind of support that setup of that, of that office there in Europe and the hubs in Europe. So yeah, I mean that's me, and I try to be concise so we can open up more for questions and discussions. But that's
Yeah.
me in a nutshell. I'm happy to share my experience, and I'm happy also to learn as well from your experiences, and also looking forward to the comments as well in the discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's great. Abdurrahman, I have this quick question. What do you do apart from these two organizations? Are you a student, or you are working
No,
professional, or what do you do?
I'm working, so I'm a human resources consultant, a human resources and organization development consultant. So
Right.
I'm not as young as Vyara. I
Yeah.
used to be young.
But young at heart, huh?
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
especially still working with the youth. No,
Yeah.
I've graduated from my postgraduate from my master's around 5-6 years
Yeah.
ago, and I've been working in that field, like human resources management and organization development. So to do with like strategy, strategic development, and so on. So this is, let's say, my yeah, what brings me
Bread and
money.
butter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think this context of your into human resource and consultancy will definitely add some more spice into our conversation. With my own experience of working with young people for last 8 years at Youth Impact, we started this not-for-profit in 2013 with the mission to develop purposeful and character-based young social leaders in Pakistan. And the last 7 years, we are so grateful that we had been able to touch and train more than 25,000 young people in this country from all socioeconomic classes. And the best part is that our most beautiful classroom, leadership classroom, is the mountains of Himalayas. And yeah, that's where I really feel proud about this whole thing. And what I why I'm highlighting this part, that while working with young people, no matter what age bracket you are in, you feel young always. You feel energetic, you feel positive, you feel futuristic and optimistic. So this is the best reward of working with young people. So yeah, wonderful, excellent. So taking this conversation forward, Vyara, we are going through this pandemic situation across the globe, and a lot of challenges for the families, for communities, for businesses, for governments, for nations. So how do you see this whole pandemic situation in your part of the world? How good or bad it is, how well it had been managed or not, and generally how the young people see or respond to this whole situation?
All right. So in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, when people still didn't know what it is and it was very new, very scary, I think people used to take it more seriously, and people would follow all the rules and be more responsible with what they're doing and their behavior in general. But I feel like now, especially with the summer coming, it's more taken lightly, taken freely, as if, everything has gone, everything has passed, it's all okay. And I see like division in society between the people who are very responsible, they always wear masks, they follow all the rules, they keep the distance, and between the people who are, how should I say it, people who really don't believe in the COVID as a virus. They just think it's a government hoax. They think it's kind of a scheme about like controlling people, which is very interesting to me, because actually right now in Bulgaria we have more cases than ever, but there are no restrictions anymore, which is interesting on the part of the government. And it's very confusing as to why now they're not taking any measures, even though we have more cases than ever. So yeah, that's very confusing to me. But overall, I feel like the COVID situation has been overall okay, because our health system is still functioning properly, which was the biggest concern for me.
Right, it sounds a familiar story. I mean, we also see the similar kind of situation, a lot of chaos and confusion, a lot of conspiracy theories, and there is a faction of people who believe it as a pandemic, it as a viral disease, and on the other side we have got a large number of people who believe on all the conspiracy theories, who believe that someone is playing with your minds and someone is playing with your economies and all that. So whatever, I mean, there's still, it is there and it is a fact and it is a reality. So Abdelrahman, how do you see the young people responding to pandemic in your experience, in your circles?
Yeah. So I mean, definitely besides the two ends of the spectrum where people are maybe taking it, as Vyara mentioned, some people are taking it as a conspiracy. But I think overall, this COVID-19 situation was quite interesting to see how the youth stepped up. I think overall, at least from my experience in Europe, and also like in other parts of the world where the governments were struggling, but at the same time, the youth, they did step up. In many countries, they did lead a lot of initiatives to support the vulnerable people in their communities, doing this going out of their way, while they're also stressed as well. So I think we need to bear in mind that this whole situation was very, very stressful, something unprecedented, something that we've not seen before. I think at the start and even until now, it feels like a movie. It's like, what's going on, but I think young people did really step up. I'm talking, for example, about the UK and Europe. In the UK, the government initially launched this campaign where they asked for volunteers, and they received, I think, around 1 million or something volunteer applications, or even more, and more young to support, people, vulnerable people, and with deliveries and supporting the hospitals and so on. So I think overall, I was quite impressed, and I think it also shown and proved to the, maybe let's say, the elders and the older generations, that the youth can step up and are able to step up if you give them the space and if you give them the responsibility, because they are proactive and they are involved. And I think we should use this opportunity to make sure that they continue to be engaged and involved in discussions beyond just use them to respond. I think we need to, right now, for example, we can speak about this later, but there are discussions in Europe about the future, the future post COVID-19. And we are pushing through FEMISO and through other organizations to make sure that the youth are on the table, the youth are being considered and being taken seriously, because also this is our future as youth. We're going to live through that, through the consequences of the COVID-19. I can speak more about other specific initiatives, which also we kind of launched through our network, but I think there might be questions later on that.
Sure, definitely. We can explore more as we go forward. And while you talk about responsibility and engagement and the initiatives by young people, so that brings me to the point where I asked Vyara that, at such a young age, you managed to travel to so many places and you managed to work with so many young organizations. So what was your driving force? What had been the biggest motivation, or what had been the greatest supporting factor? Was it your parents, your society, or it was just an internal drive, or how does it happen? We need to hear more about it. Yeah.
All right. So I think for me, it was a very interesting combination of a lot of factors.
Yeah.
I think the educational system, the way it is structured in my country, it doesn't really encourage people to go out of the way that it has been built for. For example, we only have formal classes and no extracurriculars, nothing like clubs or sports, which in the beginning I thought it was okay when I started my high school career. But as I started watching more and more YouTube and going into social media, because in these years that was the time where social media was really starting to get more and more popular, I feel like I started comparing myself to youth from around the globe, like for example American youth. And I would see that, for example, the people on my age, they would do so many outside of school things like sports or music or volunteering, and I was like, okay, I want to do something like that. So I got inspired by people on social media, and I was like, okay, apparently my school doesn't provide this. I have to find it for myself. So I just started using the internet, which for me is a very powerful tool, to find opportunities to volunteer, to find new and interesting hobbies, not just, go out with my friends or watch movies, which are still good things to do, but I wanted to do something more, how should I say it? Something that would develop me as a person more. So that's how I got started. I don't know if it answers the question.
That's fine. I mean, on the surface, this is a great response that, especially we could also relate this situation to Pakistan, where you said that a lot of schools and universities, they do not offer extracurricular and a lot of social activities, though it's the trend is changing lately. But still, a lot of young people, they are just bound to, spend time in the schools and their academics. And by the way, still, I would say a huge percentage of parents, they believe that the first and foremost duty of a student or a young person is to study only. That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, doing some social work or participating in debates or sports or any adventure club or any book reading club, I mean, all these activities are still considered as a wastage of your time, which deviates you from your goal. So, one thing which I got from your response is that, that you got that spark or that desire within yourself to do something beyond academics. And the second thing you told us that you went on YouTube. So this is very important that, how do you spend your time and how do you prioritize your leisure time even? So that's a good start, and I'll move to Abdelrahman. That Abdelrahman, from your vantage point of view, how do you see young people getting into activism? Because you are part of two global youth organizations. So when you want to engage young people, how do you convince them, or how do you inspire them to dedicate some of their time to these kind of activities? What is their motivation?
Yeah, I think carrying on from what Vyara mentioned and what you mentioned as well, Abdul Samad, is that at the moment working within, let's say, the system by itself, for example, let's say we're just going to the school, going to university, or just doing things by the book, as they would say it, is not enough. Because I think, especially as young people, you have the opportunity and you have the time and you have the passion to invest in yourself, to invest in your time, to invest in your skills and so on. And it's kind of, this is the time, this is the age when you're still, in your teenage times, or you still maybe in your 20s as well. And it depends, if you still see yourself as youth later on. But I mean, that's a time where you invest and kind of put yourself out of your comfort zone. So I think this is where we support the youth. I think it has to start from the local level, because I think sometimes when you just jump in as a global organizations and saying, okay, come and get involved with us, I don't think this is the best approach. I think you should always have this rank where you work with globally, and then nationally, and then globally. So locally is very important. So being close to the youth, sharing your expertise. I think sharing my experience is very important, and others, similar age to me, we say that how this activism kind of impacted us, both when we were young, and made us have a purpose in life. And I think this is very important, the whole purpose of life. And I think also it comes from our faith as well. That we believe in having purpose. We believe in investing and supporting our community, something that we see in the Quran and we see in the Sunnah and so on. But also being able to fulfill certain responsibilities. But at the same time, I think as a consequence is when you grow older, you will actually the experiences that you go through when you're young, and maybe the way you're being exposed to challenges, maybe even sometimes conflict, maybe even sometimes organizing events and being under pressure, you will thank those who got you involved when you are actually into professional work, because you then, if, for example, if you go into the debate clubs, public speaking, and so on, those skills are like, if I'm going to speak from a HR perspective. When I'm interviewing someone, I'm actually looking for that extra kind of
Yeah.
edge.
Yeah.
Like, what are you bringing extra to the table?
Yeah.
And someone speaking about, like, I was organizing events, I was, I did this public speaking, I did this, especially as graduates. I was like, okay, this person has, can go the extra mile, can give, as we say, the 110%. And I think this
Yeah.
10% is what goes beyond the system.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way we motivate young people. And I think at the same time, offering them, like, let's say, a balanced approach of activism, where also you give, but I think it's also very important that they take as well, because I think this is one of the mistakes that other organizations fail into, which they're expecting the young volunteers to only give, and burn out. And I think there always has to be that balance of give and take. So yes, you have to give, but also at the same time, I have to invest in you, I have to train you, I have to support you, and also give you the space if you need, because sometimes as young people you feel, let's say, under pressure to say, I cannot do something. So as older, maybe mentors, and as older kind of managers of these organizations, you always have to have this emotional intelligence, and
Yeah.
understand, and getting close to young people to understand, maybe they're busy with studies, maybe they have issues on a family level or whatever level they are, and giving them the space and giving them the break when they need to. So yeah, this is, let's say, mainly it. You can ask more questions if you want, but this is
Yeah,
mainly it.
wonderful, wonderful. I like this line when you said that it's a two-way process, where when a volunteer brings in the contribution or the value, the organization should enable to provide some value to that person as well. So it has to be a win-win for both of them. Abdelrahman, by what age you started volunteering, like formal volunteer? I mean, all of us, we start volunteering. It's a human act. Like when I bring this cup of tea on the table of my mom, or bring a glass of water, still that's a small act of volunteerism. So it starts from there. But formal volunteerism, like activism, working with any organization or any club. So when did you start that?
I think formal, let's say, formal volunteer, I would go beyond school, because like at school I also did volunteer, like as a class rep and stuff. But let's say formal volunteering came more through my student time. So as
Uh-huh.
soon as I went to university, around the age of 18 or 19,
Yeah.
I became active with my student union. So like helping out with activities with the student union. I'm sure you have this structure in Pakistan, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, the student unions and universities. So this is when I got active, but also I got active with my, let's say, local community, which is prominently Muslim community, and kind of like helping in the mosque, and helping with activities like camps and stuff for the youth. But as a young volunteer, you'd always help out in the camps, like, for example,
Wow.
carrying the bags. And I think that's important, because I think also you should learn let's say, the key logistics, for you to then later on, when you
That's
become, let's say, the head of this camp, understand every nitty-gritty of the volunteering. So yeah, so
yeah.
I think this was the time that I got more into the volunteering, and then I ended up kind of at the age of 23, 24, like going a bit more into, let's say, the Muslim organizations volunteerism,
Hmm.
that are working on a national level. So they're not working just within the community, but they're working to represent, and working with other institutions, and working with other faith, and other cultures, and so on. And I kind
Interesting.
of like found my way there, and got active through the students Islamic Society on campus in my
Yeah.
university,
Yeah.
but also then through the National Federation of Muslim Students in the UK, and then eventually, as I mentioned, FEMISO after that.
Great, wonderful. I mean, that's a great journey. I'm sure you must be documenting it somewhere, and so that a lot of young people can benefit and follow your
I'm
footsteps.
trying.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Vyara, what had been your takeaway? Like you have spent so many years volunteering and being an activist. So, what 2, 3 key learnings or major changes or transformations you have experienced in your own self during this whole journey? Yeah.
I think probably one of the most important things that young people right now should realize is that you don't need to have a lot of resources, you don't need to have connections, you don't need to be super educated to be able to volunteer and to find your path. Because I feel like in my country, people believe that, oh, you have to get at a certain age or you have to be a certain type of person to have change happen in your immediate circle. But I think that that's not true. I think that you have to believe in yourself and you have to try. And you don't need money or connection or power to actually create change. Like, for example, one of my favorite companies right now in Bulgaria is a startup by university students in this small town. And it's called Grandma Knows Best. And it's super cute because they have grandmas who are from poor regions that usually would not have any like income because they are already retired. They ask them to share recipes of their most precious foods, and then
Wow.
they make them together and they sell them at a, of course, higher price because they're all made locally with local products. And it's such a great initiative because it's just a few students with their grandmas from the region that are just creating this company, which is kind of famous right now because of it, the impact that it has, because it not only cares about profit, but it cares about the people who it reaches by the product and the people who make the product, which for me is just amazing. And it shows that you don't have to be rich or you don't have to be like very educated to do it. So that's my one key takeaway. Just have a little faith, and I feel like you can achieve much more than people with no faith but power and money.
Wonderful. That's great. While you were narrating this story, myself being a youth trainer, when I listen to the people, so I structure their thoughts or their ideas into a model. So what I see that, you talked about belief, that one thing you mentioned that, it helped you develop that faith and belief. And this is what every young person who gets into activism, who gets into serving, who gets into giving back, develops a strong self-belief. And the second thing you mentioned is being resourceful. You learned that you can't be limited by resources, so being resourceful. And the third thing, a lot of opportunities. You get a chance to interact and see a lot of opportunities, like you gave this example of grandma's this startup village, or this beautiful concept. Wonderful. So Abdelrahman, what one experience in your whole volunteer work had been the most profound, most impactful experience for you in your life?
This is a very tough question.
Really? Okay, I take it back. I take it back.
No, no,
So
no.
should I ask
It's okay.
easy one?
It's a very
Right.
good question.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be speaking a bit generically, and then I'll try and remember like a specific kind of
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
But I think kind of like the most rewarding kind of feeling is when you are, especially like when I got a bit older. Let's say, so I became a youth leader instead of
Yeah.
just the volunteers. Is actually you seeing the impact of yourself and of your organizations on some people, on young people, and you see,
Yeah.
for example, how far they grow from when they come in quite young, quite shy.
Mhm.
I was personally like a very shy, very kind of introverted person,
Yeah.
and then you kind of like develop, and you see them. For example, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Actually, this example that came to mind.
Yeah.
So I remember in my local society, local Islamic society on campus, there was this young guy that always come to like our small kind of classes and meetings and so on, but he's always shy, and he wasn't very kind of engaged. But from few discussions, I saw something in him, and we started like
Mhm.
I started investing and like telling, come again, come to the meetings and so on. And but then I finished my degree, and then that way I left university. but we stayed in touch. And I was watching once on Facebook, and they were streaming an event for my local Islamic society on campus, the union, student union, and they were announcing the new president of the organization, and actually it was that young guy.
Oh wow,
Became was elected. Yeah, was elected as the president, and actually was standing there and he was giving his speech, election
wow,
speech. And I was
wow.
like, I actually like it. In a way, I felt a bit emotional,
Yeah,
but it was like this was like this. This is why I'm in this work. is to make sure that
yeah.
young people are being empowered, are being kind of given this opportunity, because I think they have something to give, and they need the space, they need, let's say, this
Oh,
extra confidence in them. So I think this is an example, and I've seen many of them, but this one for me was very special, because I didn't expect it somehow, but
yeah.
I
I
was
love
very.
I mean, I love this example because I can relate to this whole experience, and I always tell my team that it is like when you see your student or someone whose life has been impacted by you or your efforts. When you see that person on a victory stand, you feel that sense as a parent, like when you see your children, getting good grades or getting even married or getting reaching to the success. So the same feeling comes to you as a youth leader when you empower more people, and you feel yourself empowered for this kind of work. And that's where I say that when I see all these young people, the youth impactors, doing so much amazing work, and I just feel that this is something I need to keep doing for rest of my life. So wonderful, that's amazing. I've got this question from one of our audience. This young lady, she had been asking about the how to convince the parents, because I just mentioned in my conversation that in a conventional society, the parents believe that your academics is your prime responsibility, and this is what I had been listening all my academic life, that your prime focus is your studies, your grades, your academic achievements, and that's where we also need to be compared with our cousins, with our neighbors, with our class fellows. And how a young person with conviction can convince her parents that if I volunteer some hours in one typical day, or I volunteer on some project, how this is not going to hinder my academic performance, rather it is going to help me become a better human, better leader, better manager. So how do you think, what are quick tips? And this is an open question to both of you, because this is something very typical to every young person who get challenged to convince their parents. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had that struggle too,
Yeah.
because not only with parents or relatives, but for scholarships, because when you apply for a scholarship, of course, they care about what you do in your free time, but they care a lot about your academics, which used to kind of make me angry a little bit, because I think that academics now are very far away from what the world looks like. But I would say that the best way to convince your parents that those extracurriculars, this extra volunteering is not going to hinder your academic performance, but it's only going to help it, is by just talking to them and having honest and open conversations about what you want to do. For example, going like, hey, I think I might be interested in playing this sport, and it's very good for you, and maybe you can ask somebody to talk with your parents on your behalf, like a mentor or somebody with more experience, because I tend to see that parents don't take their kids so seriously, but they would take an outside person with experience more seriously, which sometimes really confuses me. But I would say that, for example, if, let's say, a teacher in school sees that you can do very well in a debate club, you can ask that teacher to help you a little bit and saying, hey, I want you to help me with my parents because they're kind of conservative, but this is like such a passion for me. So for me, that's something that has worked. But of course, it's a process and it takes a lot of time. Do not expect your parents to change for 5 minutes, because, as you know, they are people with values. Those values have been growing for years, so you will have to put some effort into it. But don't give up. It's important not to give up.
give up. Don't give. Absolutely. I mean, have a faith in it, believe in it, that this is something good, something positive for you, for society, and even for your parents. And as you said, that, being persistent and also bringing in some influencers into the equation who can influence your parents, who believe in you, and who can convince your parents. So, Abdelrahman, with your experience, how a conservative family can or a young person in a conservative family can convince his or her parents to let her spend some time with some positive activities.
Yeah, actually, I really liked Vyara's answer, and I'm gonna
Yeah,
use some of that as well. But I think
sure.
the first thing to understand, and I think you have to understand this as a young person, because sometimes you forget, is that your parents do certain things out of care. They genuinely care for you. Maybe
Yeah,
some of the stuff that they are doing is maybe not, let's say, compliant to the current situation and so on, but you always have to keep in mind that they are coming from a good intention and a good faith and so on. That's very, very, very important, and I think thereafter you should think about your, how can you go and how can you maybe convince them and so on. So
yeah,
adding to what Vyara, sorry, mentioned, is that one of the things that I would do, and I've done actually in the past, is actually invite my parents to come and attend one of the events, or one of the sports, or even like, yeah, something like this. I think this works very well. I think they
yeah,
also, when they see you there, they see you kind of confident, and like doing something. They'll be really proud of you, by the way. And if anything, I think at one moment, even like my parents started even like saying, why are you not like going to your meetings, and so on. So I think this worked for me, and it might work. And I think sometimes also talk to them about it. So maybe like
yeah,
in discussion, you can speak about how the discussions are happening there, involve them, and talk to them, and so on. And again, it might work, it might not work, but it might work. And I think just get them excited in your interest, and if your activism is your interest, I think definitely get them excited about it. And then also one more thing to add. There's an exhausting list, but I can add one more thing, which is
yeah.
also be honest with yourself and be honest with them.
True.
Because yes, as Vyara mentioned, and I think right now, again, we're looking at it from a work perspective, is you need both your academic, especially if you want to go into certain fields. Not all the fields need your academic kind of background, but some fields do need you to achieve, to have good achievements in academia. But also, you have to balance this with your activism. So I think you have to be honest with yourself when you speak to your parents, and also speak to yourself as well. That you say, okay, yes, I can understand
Yeah,
your concern, but at the same time, I know that I can manage my time, and so on. And you have to prove it. And I think if you prove it, and for example, in the first semester that you are active, and you still even better grades while giving your activism, I think they will be supporting you. So I think this kind of honest conversation between you and yourself, but also your parents, are very important.
yeah.
Yeah, those are kind of some tips, but I'm sure also the audience, maybe they have some tips as well, that they can
Yeah.
share with us.
Wonderful. I can definitely relate with a lot of what you both of you said, that once I had this problem convincing my parents that what kind of work I'm doing, because I used to do outdoor leadership camps. So my father used to tell everyone that he's into tourism here, so he takes people on tours. So I taught him something else, and he's just managing tours. So as you said that once I convinced him to join me on one of those tours, and when he went there and he saw the kind of programming we do, this kind of human behavior, human transformation happens in those 3, 4, 5 days in the wilderness. He came to me and he said that, wow, you are doing like your worship. It's like worship. So you are like praying to God. So this is something equal to that. So keep doing this great work. And then he always used to say the same thing, that I want to visit your programs more, because that makes me feel good that my son is doing something great. So that is one very good tip, that seeing is believing. But more importantly, as you said, that it starts from your own self. For the young people, that like, what is your approach? Are you considering them versus you, or all together, like we are partners. So it's not competition, or it's not something between you and your parents. It's a partnership, it's a collaboration, and all of you are focusing on the same goal, which is your growth, your development. So how do you approach them? How do you bring them on board as partners? The power lies within you. So you have to find out all those creative solutions, as Vyara said, that find that uncle or auntie who can influence your parents and who believes in you, or maybe take them to your work and show the impact, or especially be more strategic, like bring them at that point where you are getting that trophy or that shield or that award on the stage, and everyone is clapping for you. I mean, I believe that as parent, they will love that moment, and they will feel proud about you, and they will change their mind. So it's totally up to you guys that how do you approach them. Okay, moving forward, Yani, I mean, I'm just seeing that we have got 20 more minutes in our conversation. I've got this little exercise for you guys, both of you, and we are going to play thumbs up. So I'm going to put a statement over here on the screen, and if you agree with that statement, you put your thumbs up, and if you disagree, your thumb down, right? And
And if you're not sure, you do this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can be diplomatic at sometimes, but not always. So let's see. Let's come to this point. Okay, I'm going to send you the first point here. Right. So, being a youth activist, your academics have suffered. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. So, I mean, I need a quick comment on this, because this is the biggest concern of parents, that your academics will suffer. So how you manage that, and how you still manage to continue your journey of youth activism? Anyone?
Well, for me, it was not because I couldn't do it anymore. It's just because I didn't want to, because I felt so trapped by having to do certain things, and I didn't see the purpose of, for example, I'm really good at certain subjects, but not all of them. So I was like, okay, why should I focus on everything when I have limited time, I have limited energy? So I kind of made my academics suffer, but I have to like specify just a little bit. It's not like I got all Fs after, but I just had to prioritize, and I decided, for example, maybe studying physics is not for me, so I'm just gonna let my grades in physics go down a little.
Yeah. So little bit.
I was gonna go for the middle, because I think if I did this, I think it would be, let's say, not honest. But at the same time, I think your academics somehow suffers, especially when you're still younger. I think when you do your masters and you're getting older, you can then manage your time better. But I think also in a way, sometimes it suffers in a good way. So I think it's one of those things that, like when you're younger, you need to know how to manage your time. And I think also this is where, especially if you're volunteering in organizations, they should give you this training or development of how to manage your time, because managing time itself is an art. So I don't think it's about because I think also like we can still affect our academics by wasting time in something else. So I think it's just about managing time, if anything. So it's not to discourage anyone from doing activism. 100%.
Wonderful. We ourselves, I have gone through that life, that student life, that academic life, and I know that we have a lot of additional extra time, which we spend watching movies or hanging out with the friends, or doing nothing, or doing something which is not that meaningful or purposeful. It's just a matter of managing your own time. And with all this experience, I have reached this conclusion that it's not academic or social work. It's academics and activism. So there is an and between them, which means, as Abdelrahman said, that as a human resource manager, they're also looking at your academic performance, your technical competence. What have you learned in that specific field of studies? If you're studying medical sciences, how good you are in that subject. At the same time, they also assess your social skills, they assess your interpersonal skills, which you learn generally from your activism. Interesting. So I'm moving to the next question. Being a youth activist, your family life was affected. Yes. Okay. Right. So we have got this tie. So Vyara, how did you manage that? Is it still in
Well,
that same mode, or you managed to bring it down?
I think my family life was affected, but in a good way, because I don't see if the question has like a negative connotation. But
That's
my
great.
family, of course, in the beginning, sometimes would be suspicious of why I'm spending so much time outside of home when I used to be at home so much, studying and doing things. And they were suspicious of why I started traveling so much, because your parents, they care a lot about you, and sometimes they have suspicions about, okay, why is this organization paying for you to go places? It's a little suspicious, it's a little weird. So in the
Yeah.
beginning, there was this effect of them thinking, oh, did you get into some bad organization? Are they just going to take advantage of you? Because a young girl could go into a lot of bad places. But
Yeah.
after that, again, after I took them to the places that I've been going to, I've shown them like certificates and photos from events and videos. They were very proud of me, and now my mom is like the biggest supporter. Because I have like a blog, I have different things that I'm doing, and she's always like the first one to share it, the first one to comment it.
Yeah.
And now my family life is great, and everybody's very proud. In the beginning, it's hard, but you have to
Is
think.
she watching, sorry, Vera, is she watching this live session?
No, right now, no, because she's at work, but
Right.
she's like watching everything I do. So I bet she's gonna watch it later. So I'm gonna say hi to her now.
Yeah. But this is amazing. I love this statement that your parents are your biggest support system, and if you become make them your partners, and your life is at ease. It's perfect. And for married people, I say the same thing. If you make your life partner as your mission partner, nothing like that. So Abdulrahman, you had thumbs down, right? So
I
how
think
did you
it's quite
manage?
similar. I think it's quite similar to Vyara, but at the same time, as I mentioned at the start, for me, from a very young age, I included them in the conversation. So in a way, they've gone with me through the, let's say, that pathway.
Yeah.
So it makes it. I think it actually affected in a good way, because they do get kind of also, as I share everything with them. I'm sure I'm going to share this link with them later on. They're also at work at the moment, but
Yeah.
it's actually, they're excited about it. And I think involving your parents, involving whoever, like as you mentioned, even sometimes if you're married, your
Yeah.
partners, into your extra curriculum is very important. And take
Yeah.
them with you in the journey, so they feel it, and they feel also, when they feel that you're passionate about it, and they feel that this is an integral part of their life, they will
Yeah.
support it. I think this is
It's
my
excellent.
message to the Pakistani youth that are watching us, and other youth that are watching us as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Next question. After all this activism, can you clearly see the end goal? Yes.
It's a little wiggly, yes.
Yeah.
Abstention.
Rahman is
I,
still thinking.
I would say, no.
Okay. Right. So yeah, I know this is a bit difficult question, because people spend the whole life identifying their end goal. But do you think you guys are on the right track? This whole activism help you identify your purpose, your why, your reason to be on Earth? Did it help somehow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, of course, the end goal is very vague and very hard to pinpoint, even if you're 90 years old. But for
Yeah.
me, it has shown me that you can do stuff that makes a change in the world. Because in the beginning, when you're young, you're very confused. You don't know anything about the
Yes.
world, and you're just like, what should I do? Should I focus on my career and just think about myself, or should I focus on others and volunteer and help? But like, I think those two things are not excluding each other. You can help yourself by helping others, because, for example, when you volunteer, you also develop leadership skills, you develop different time management skills, and a lot of different capabilities that you wouldn't otherwise. So I think that's one of the goals for you, to help others and help yourself, which for me is pretty good and it's pretty clear.
Excellent. Excellent. Wonderful. Yeah, Abdurrahman, any comment on this? Are you on the right track, do you think?
Yeah, the reason I said no, because I think maybe what Vyara mentioned is your motivation, and kind of like your personal goal. But I saw it more as like a global goal. And I think for me, like let's say the goal of why, or the main aim of why I'm doing activism at a certain age changes, or actually not changes, it matures every few years, depending on the organization you work for and so on. But also, I don't know if we're going to speak about this too much now, but I'm not going to speak about it too much. But also, I think for me, there's, let's say, the faith-inspired end goal for me. I think which is actually the main reason that drives me, is my faith, and I have this end goal that I have beyond even this life.
Yeah.
But in terms of the goal itself, like, do I see an end goal? I think this is a space we're working in, and it's very hard. Things change on a daily basis. For example, in Europe, the rise of the far right, and so on and so forth. So things keep changing on a daily basis. I think also, like, when you're working nationally is different from working globally. Is different from working on a Europe level. Is different from working on a local level.
I mean, the beauty of life, I agree with you. The beauty of life is that, as soon as you progress forward, you see a bigger picture. It's like climbing up a mountain, and you see you have a greater panoramic view, and your priorities, your goals, your aspirations, they keep changing. And especially in this pandemic situation, where I see that everything has changed, and it has, raise those questions in our minds that, what's future, what's next. So how do you see the future, next 1 or 2 years? What kind of opportunities or challenges for young people in this post-COVID world? What are those things young people need to prepare themselves? I mean, I can have a list of top 10 skills by World Economic Forum or any other organization, but from your personal experience, what do you think? What are those 2-3 important things that young people need to really focus for next 2-3 years? Anyone?
That's a very big question, but I think what this COVID pandemic situation has shown us is that our societies could adapt really quickly. And for example, for me, something really interesting was, again, about the education system in Bulgaria, is that we have been trying to make the education system more accessible and more modern for years, but they have been slowing it down, always like giving excuses to why it's not possible. And then during the COVID pandemic, the entire education system found a way to make it all online in like two weeks, which was so interesting because they have been trying to do that for years, and that change has been kind of delaying itself, and then we have the COVID and it's done. So for me, that's one very, very good thing that happened during the COVID pandemic. And I think what young people, we should be very careful, because yes, the internet is a great resource, and now we have way more opportunities than our parents, for sure. But at the same time, we also have a lot of distractions. So we have to be very focused and like not let ourselves just get shoved in all the things that are happening right now, because I feel like with all the conspiracy theories and with everybody making different claims, it can be really easy to get discouraged and feel like, oh, what I do doesn't matter, or I'm too small to make a change. So I think we have a lot of challenges, yes, posed by the COVID situation, but every challenge brings an opportunity with itself. So I'm very positive about what is going to happen. And I think young people should be focused on just adapting themselves, being agile and being flexible.
Interesting. Wonderful. So focus, adaptable, fragile, flexible. Excellent. Abdelrahman, so what are 2-3 things that you can foresee in the coming future?
Okay, so I'm going to speak from, let's say, an activism side of things, but also from maybe more of a pragmatic side of things as well when it comes to work and so on. So I think from an activist side of things, or from your contribution, I'm sure a lot of people that are watching us are either activists or people that hopefully have the passion or want to explore activism. I think you should start thinking about challenges that are facing the community, especially with the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. That's very important. So as youth, we should be, and youth organizations, we should be on the top of the game. And I think that way would be, you would be contributing positively and kind of timely to your community, but I think also you'll be taken more seriously. and also other topics, for example, like I think one of the topics that we speak about, I'm not sure how much you're speaking about it, guys, in Pakistan, but I think it's an important topic, which is climate change and the impact on the environment. It's a real danger for all of us. And we can already see right now with all the global warming and things around us. So I think please do take this seriously. Please maybe educate yourself about it. And I think because this is the future. I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about our future. I'm worried about the future of our, the next generations and so on and so forth. And I think, again, this comes out of responsibility. And maybe something I wanted to mention when we speak about your contribution while, during the pandemic or even, during the times of challenges. An example that I wanted to give from our network is actually in March, which was very early in the outbreak in Europe. It was very early in March. We anticipated that people will struggle, especially governments and communities, dealing with vulnerable people. And one of the volunteers, she's 21, actually in Italy. So actually she was, let's say, in the heart of the pandemic. She wanted to do something, and she decided to, with other volunteers in our network, to launch a social media kind of campaign to encourage young people across Europe and across the globe to give back and become active and support the vulnerable, and also honor and support the people that are working in the front lines. And it started with a Skype call, trying to get people. 21-year-old in Italy herself is distressed, and we created those toolkits for youth in I think like 30-40 languages, and not just European languages, but also like including Urdu and other languages and so on, which went viral a little bit, and also like it got mentioned by the UN, United Nations Youth Envoy, as the 10 top responses to COVID-19 across the world. So actually that was quite interesting. So also never belittle something, especially when you have the passion and you have the kind of that investment. And from a pragmatic point of view, I think I think this is a good time to sit down and reflect and kind of refresh on your future, because I think things are changing very, very dramatically. And I think as a young person, I'm not sure like the culture plays a role, but I believe that you can always change your career. You can always change your educational kind of path according to the needs of the market. And I think right now with the COVID-19, there's going to be a huge change of the needs of the market, huge change. And I'm talking about this from a HR perspective, but also from speaking to people in the institutions and speaking to people in the governments and so on, is that things are changing dramatically and drastically. And I think we should be in the top of our game in terms of understanding what's happening post COVID-19 in terms of the job market. And I think the job market is going to be one of the biggest challenges facing us moving forward. It's anticipated, if not actually, it's actually worse than the 2008, 2010 recession that happened. So it's not to put anyone down or anyone off, but I think we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to reflect on this, and also invest time, as you mentioned, from the World Economic Forum, of like developing our skills, but also I think rethink and maybe re-strategize our career path based on the availability and so on. Because the last thing that you want is within a couple of years you finish your degree, or 4 years or whatever, and you're struggling to find a job. You're struggling to so on, because when you struggle to find a job, then you struggle to be active. I think there has to be a balance. Sorry for taking
Wow. That was very, very comprehensive, and I wish all the young people who are watching and listening, they must take a notes of these advices, because these are very practical tips coming from Vyara and Abdelrahman, and I believe that they are the solution. So we have got last 2 minutes of our conversation. Can you believe me? And you've got 30 seconds each to give your conclusive remarks, your closing message, as a summary to the young people who are watching or listening to you. So starting from Vyara, time starts now.
Okay, so I'm going to be very practical, and I'm going to share with you guys some resources that you can use. First are going to be the websites and apps that are called Youth Opportunities and Opportunity Desk. Check them out because they have a lot of opportunities for you to volunteer and do stuff. Also, check out ISIC and check out Yes Alumni Pakistan, because these are all organizations that are doing great, and you can explore all the opportunities that they offer, so you can see which ones you like and which ones you don't. And yeah, my time's over. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was good. Okay, Abdelrahman, up for 30-second challenge.
Yeah, so I would say believe in yourself, believe in your impact, keep up the good work, and also stick to your values. I think that's very important. And I think to stick in time, also I wanted to say that Pakistan is a country that has a lot of talent, a lot of creativity, especially in the youth.
Yeah.
And I hope to visit you guys soon, and also maybe visit, do this trip in the mountain of the Himalayas as well. It's
Wow,
a dream.
wonderful.
Me too.
That's great. I mean, both of you are most welcome, though Vyara didn't mention it, but this is an offer for you to visit Pakistan and the beautiful mountains and the beautiful people. So the young people of Pakistan and youth across the world who are watching this session, I think that this is the power of young people who can change, who can transform, and who can bring hope. Because I don't see that hope, that optimism coming from the governments or from media or from anywhere. I mean, this is young people who have their future ahead of them, and that's where we see the ultimate source of motivation and optimism. So please keep doing this amazing work, not just for the sake of yourself, but for the people like us who are looking towards you for our hope and inspiration. And I'm thankful to Vyara and Abdelrahman for their valuable insights and their wonderful contribution. Definitely, we would love to host you guys again someday. Thank you very much and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
the
very much.
invitation.
Bye-bye.
Bye.